Hi, welcome to the Focus Lounge. This is the Pleasure Path, Part 3, and this one is entitled Embodiment. So let's run it back real quick. So in Part 1, we talked about how chasing repels, and the answer to that is relaxing, okay? In Part 2, we talked about noticing and how keeping the field of probabilities open and not collapsing it is the way to see what is most aligned with you. And number 3 is the structural piece. This is embodiment. And I'm not talking about it in a poetic way, in a literal body way. See, because first I want to cut through the noise that a lot of people feel like the body is a dumb suit, Like, I'm not going to say it like quite so harshly, but I will say we act in society as if we have to wrangle the body, we have to force it to do stuff that it doesn't want to do. Like, it just doesn't have any intelligence, but it does. It's keeping you alive. You don't have to think about breathing, it does it automatically. So, just with that example alone, you know that underneath the surface, there is a lot of processes keeping you alive, keeping everything regulated, hormonal balances, responses, fight or flight. Everything that happens in the body is happening pretty much at an unconscious level you know? And it knows how to self-regulate. It knows how to take out its own trash. It has its own mitochondrial cleaning system called autophagy. I mean, I don't want to get into the details of all that stuff, but just suffice it to say, it has innate intelligence. It knows how to renew itself, and it knows how to rebalance itself. So, I want to ground that into something that I learned about a few years ago, and then it came back into my vision recently. And I thought this was the perfect example to start this off with because it was striking to me. So in 1979, a Harvard psychologist, Dr. Ellen Langer, had this study called Counterclockwise, and it involved a group of 70 and 80-year-old men. They were split into two groups, a control group that just talked about everything as if it were 1959 again, 20 years earlier. And then there was another group that was taken to a monastery retreat where things were recreated as if the environment was 1959. The place where they stayed, the furnishings were 1959 inspired. The magazines, the newspapers, the music that was playing on the radio. The men were instructed to carry their own luggage, to be as able as they were 20 years ago, basically. And they were to talk about current events as if it were present time. So not reminiscing, actually immersed in the experience of being in 1959. Well, the study was really amazing because after just 5 days, the baseline measurements that had been taken from these men for flexibility, joint mobility, grip strength, and a host of other things, including their pictures, had markedly changed. Everything improved. And even most remarkably, and this stayed with me, remember, these are 70, 80-year-old men. Some came in with canes and left without them. Some were even playing touch football on the lawn. Like, that is huge. And then independent judges were shown before and after pictures of the men, not knowing about the study, and consistently rated the after pictures as younger looking. So, what is that telling you? Immersion matters. Here's another study. That was external immersion. Let's talk about internal immersion. I think that everybody knows about studies where runners were hooked up to electrodes and asked to mentally prepare for their race. Literally, like, get down at the starting line, hear the gun go off, start going, feel your breath, really visualize this as if it were happening. And with that, the motor function of the brain started firing. The micro functions of the muscles started firing. So the body was acting as if it were doing the race, even though it was sitting still. So the body itself responds to the immersion that you give it. If it's a mental rehearsal, it's what it takes on. If it's a physical immersion rehearsal, it's what it takes on. So I want to pause at this moment to just talk about something that we as a society tend to do a lot, which is complain. What are we saying to ourselves and our bodies when we announce, oh, this is just what aging looks like, or my knees are shot, or I'm just not coordinated, or I'm not smart enough for that, or I'll never be this or that. Whatever you're saying to yourself, the body is listening. I mean, I'm not saying that you should turn around and construct something that feels like a lie to you, but keeping it neutral and then maybe having kind of like a baseline, let's see what happens with this thought instead of declaring it out loud. You know, I feel like expectation is what forges what goes on with the body. And so this is very obvious when you compare people of the same exact age who are having a vastly different look and feel about life. There are 50-year-olds, just to name an age group, running marathons and being as fit as can be, looking amazing. And then there are those that are feeling really crappy and that present decades older than their actual physicality, their chronological years. And I think it's really because all of that follows, and the studies are showing it. So, I mean, I can believe all the studies I want, but I really track my own personal experience in my own life. And I can tell you an example that probably resonates with almost everybody listening. I have never been a thin girl, not a real thin girl, not like a model runway girl. No, my body type is thickish, strong, sturdy, solid, healthy. That's who I am. And I identify with that. But in my younger years, I wanted to change it. I wanted to be more svelte. I wanted to present differently. It wasn't what media was telling me was the way to look, blah, blah, blah. Now I know better. But anyway, back then I was trying to wrangle my body into doing things. And I tried all types of diets. I tried all sorts of exercise programs, different things. Some I liked, some I didn't. But I was trying nonetheless. But here's what I noticed after so much trial and error. The times when my body shifted significantly were the times when I was immersed in a joyful experience. And why is that important? Because joyful experiences can be recreated. The grind, not so much. Nobody likes to white knuckle anything. We don't like to have restrictions in our diet. We don't like to have restrictions in, our free time or be told what we need to do to achieve this, especially if it sounds like something we don't want to do. So, lots of trying things I didn't want to do. Sometimes the body responded. Sometimes it didn't move a bit. But I will say this. There was a season where I was taking hip hop class, a dance class that I had always been interested in taking, but one finally came around locally enough for me to do it. And I went Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And at first, I'm not going to lie, it was rough. I definitely was not coordinated. Even though I have rhythm, the actual getting the coordination was not something new to me. I'd never taken class before, and here I was trying it for the first time. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the people. I enjoyed the fact that everybody was so welcoming, the studio itself, the music. And so I kept coming. I kept showing up. And every time I would videotape myself and in class to catch the choreography and see what I had done and just have it as a record of that day's work. And then I would look at it in my quiet time at night, not with any sort of effort, but just looking at it. And I looked at me in the video as someone outside of myself. And I noticed myself liking me. I wasn't scanning for how big my body was or how small it was. I wasn't looking in that light at myself. I was admiring myself for showing up even when I looked clumsy, for laughing it off when I could have been annoyed, for choosing to enjoy myself regardless. And because everybody else that was there was of different levels and stuff, we could always find camaraderie. And that was the thing. It was the immersion and the joy of doing this class and watching myself improve. So Tuesday's videotape was always rough, clumsy, like definitely we'd laugh about it in the same day one and just chalk it up to that because we knew even my good friend who was an experienced dancer, she had been a cheerleader for the Dallas Cowboys, for God's sakes, she was always saying day one is terrible, even though she looked amazing next to me, but whatever. We laughed, we had a good time. By Thursday, the video looked cleaner, like I was getting it a little bit better. And I would revel in that feeling of accomplishment. By Saturday, it was pretty good. And so I started identifying with myself as the person who was dancing for joy and getting some of the moves right away and then getting them later on, but admiring her trying, her being there, her laughing, her joy, watching as I lost myself in the moment of just communing with that creative force that drove me through the dance, the sequences of the dance, stringing together the bits that I had learned to become one long choreo. And that felt amazing. And what happened? I wasn't monitoring my food. I wasn't monitoring my exercise. I wasn't showing up to that class because it was my form of exercise. I came because I wanted to, because it sustained me, because it was fun, because we laughed. And that is the pleasure path in a nutshell. When you show up for yourself in a pleasureful way and you choose the things that give you joy instead of the shoulda, woulda, coulda, hadda, I need to do it this way, I need to be at the gym for hours because this is how it works. No, stop. Nothing that is not sustainable works in the long run. So if you've ever experienced wanting to affect change and you think that going about it in a disciplined way, I know I use a lot of air quotes, but it's because I almost scoff at this way of thinking because it's so, so forcing, so efforting, so trying too hard. This is so not the way that we affect change in life. In order to affect change, things have to be sustainable. Your immersion has to be repeatable. You have to feel yourself being. Am I a dancer right now? Possibly. Have I continued to go to hip hop class? No, because that season ended and class changed and COVID hit and many things. But regardless, I still found other ways to give myself the pleasure path of embodying something else, like being the singer I always loved being and getting better at it for the fun of it, not for this is the technical way you go about it. No, once I relaxed into it, I could do practically any song I wanted to. And I'm not saying this in a conceited fashion. It's just like, here's something that happened to me that I noticed. I stopped trying, and because I was enjoying, it just came. That's what communing with creative source is like. It's just like opening the channel to like a waking meditation. That's the pleasure path. So now we know. Part one explained how chasing repels because tension constricts. So we don't want that. Relax. It's happening. It's cool. Part two is noticing the external cues, the little signs, the internal noticings when you're not collapsing the field and trying to make everything about one outcome so that it can come to you in many different ways. And then if something doesn't work out, you're not devastated. And this is part three. What you do when you have that open field of possibilities. Now you can become. You can embody. The word embody used to sound to me like pretending. I'm embodying being this person. Now I realize that it's so much more than that. Yes, it's thinking from this person's vantage point and acting from this standpoint, but it's also the physiology that underscores what you want it to become. I was not trained in dancing, but by the end of the season, I was, along with my other friend who I laughed with about day one, the teacher's pets, and he would call us to be his personal dancers when he wanted to run a choreography on his own with us. I never thought I'd get there, and yet I did. Because I had fun, because I didn't force myself to be something, I didn't criticize, and I wasn't trying to be an A1 dancer that's gonna go on to do this, this, and that. I just let myself have fun with it. So I really want to underscore that the pleasure path is something that must be cultivated and will serve you in manifesting the life that you want. Because ultimately, you're the blueprint. I know I say this every time, and it's not just a tagline, it is the truth. The way that you move in life, the way that you perceive in life, the way that you operate and cultivate the dance with the unknown inner being, invisible forces around you is what helps you manifest things more clearly, more decidedly, more quickly. That's how you catch the wave because you're scanning, because you're not collapsing. It's so much easier when you're having fun because when you're not having fun and you're tight and you're shoulda, woulda, no good. I mean, you may have some success. I'm not saying that I didn't power my way through some things that I didn't enjoy and still have some success at it, but it was short-lived. The times when things really stuck around was because I enjoyed it. Now, did the season end? Did some things change? Yeah, but then I found something else I had a good time with. So it's about being malleable. It's about responding to life with curiosity and openness and just having fun. Remember what I said. Relax, have fun, everything will come. That is the mantra of the pleasure path, right there in a nutshell. So, I want to end this episode with just saying these things are worth noting in your life and thinking about. And what you say out loud and what you rehearse really matters. Your body is listening. You are listening. You are telling yourself what you are. So use the right language. Catch yourself when you're about to say something. The other day I was having a moment and I was about to say something that would have defined where I was in the moment, and I don't want to do that. So I just said something playful instead. It's okay. We're not perfect, but we can certainly be mindful of what we're doing, catch ourselves when we're doing sloppy thinking, and course correct in the moment. You're not doing it wrong. We're all doing the best we can. We're all human. And let's just go about this with lightheartedness. As Esther Hicks from Abraham Hicks says, there's nothing serious going on here. Let's have a good time. This was part 3 of The Pleasure Path. I'm Jan Brown, and this is the Focus Lounge. Until next time.